Have you ever wondered what kinds of cookies once filled American kitchens with warmth, long before today's store-bought packs and ready-made mixes? Behind every batch of flour, sugar, and spice lies a forgotten story, a memory of families gathering around the oven, waiting for something sweet to brighten even the hardest days. From the spice-laced Lebkuchen bars that carried echoes of old European traditions, to delicate anise drops that once flavored immigrant holiday tables, these recipes aren't just cookies, they're pieces of history. During holidays, wartime shortages, and even the struggles of the Great Depression, families leaned on these simple treats as tiny sparks of hope. Each cookie on this list tells us how resourceful home bakers were. Some stretched what little they had into something comforting, like applesauce cookies when eggs and butter ran short. Others celebrated abundance, like maple walnut drops or buttery pecan sandies, baked with pride when ingredients were finally within reach. This isn't just about desserts, it's about culture, survival, and the sweet traditions that shaped American kitchens for generations. And if you love uncovering these forgotten stories as much as I love sharing them, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, share it with friends, and leave a kind comment below. Your support keeps these memories alive. Stay with me until the very end, because by the time we're done, you'll see these cookies not just as recipes, but as edible time machines that once brought families together. Lebkuchen bars. When we think of cookies that once brought both warmth and comfort to American homes, Lebkuchen bars stand out as one of the most fascinating. Originating from centuries-old German traditions, this spiced treat carried with it the heart of holiday celebrations, especially for immigrant families who wanted to preserve their culture while adapting to their new life in America. Lebkuchen isn't just a cookie, it's a story written in spices. Imagine the 19th and early 20th century, when cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg, and ginger weren't just flavors, they were treasured ingredients. Immigrant bakers brought with them recipes that had been handed down for generations, and when Christmas or special gatherings came around, the scent of Lebkuchen filling the kitchen instantly tied families to their roots. By the early 1900s, American homemakers had adopted this European specialty, but they gave it their own twist. Instead of the intricate, often labor-intensive shapes of traditional German Lebkuchen, the American kitchen simplified the recipe into easy-to-make bars. Baked in a single pan, sliced into squares, and often glazed with a thin icing or sprinkled with powdered sugar, these bars became both practical and celebratory. What made them so special was their ability to stretch limited ingredients while still tasting luxurious. During wartime rationing or the Depression, when butter, eggs, and sugar were scarce, homemakers leaned on spice-forward recipes like Lebkuchen. A small amount of fat or sweetener could still yield a fragrant, satisfying dessert that felt festive, even in difficult times. But beyond the recipe itself, Lebkuchen bars symbolized something deeper. They were proof that even in a new land, families could hold on to their traditions. Sharing a plate of these bars during the holidays wasn't just about dessert, it was about memory, connection, and carrying forward the tastes of home. Anise drops. Among the most elegant yet simple cookies to grace early American kitchens were the delicate anise drops. At first glance, they look unassuming, small, pale, almost like little puffs of air. But their story is anything but ordinary. These cookies carried with them centuries of tradition, flavor, and a sense of celebration that connected families across oceans. The anise seed, with its sweet, licorice-like flavor, has long been a symbol of festivity in European baking. When German, Swiss, and Dutch immigrants arrived in America, they brought with them their treasured holiday recipes. Among those, anise drops held a special place. These cookies weren't just for everyday eating, they were saved for Christmas tables, weddings, and gatherings where family stories were shared, laughter echoed, and memories were made. What made them unique was their baking method. Each cookie was carefully piped or dropped onto a sheet and left to rest overnight. This resting time allowed a thin crust to form on top, so when they baked the next day, the cookies rose into a delicate dome with a smooth, crisp shell. Inside, they remained soft, airy, and kissed with the unmistakable flavor of anise. It was baking that required patience, precision, and care, qualities that reflected the homemakers themselves. In America, especially during the late 1800s and early 1900s, anise drops became a way for immigrant families to hold on to old traditions while embracing a new life. Flour, sugar, and eggs were relatively simple ingredients, but adding the touch of anise transformed them into something almost ceremonial. Even during lean times, a small vial of anise extract could bring back the taste of homeland celebrations. More than just cookies, they were tiny treasures that symbolized resilience and heritage. To taste one was to be reminded of home, whether that home was across the ocean or right there in a small-town American kitchen. 03. Ginger Snaps. Few cookies carry the same sense of comfort and warmth as the ginger snap, but here's the twist: the version most American families cherished wasn't always the hard, crunchy style we know today. Instead, many kitchens preferred a softer, chewy ginger snap, one that blended spice with tenderness, making it a true taste of home. Ginger itself has a long journey in American baking. Once an exotic import, it became treasured in colonial kitchens, used not only for its flavor but also for its supposed medicinal properties. By the 1800s, ginger cookies were a staple, but each region put its own spin on them. While some families enjoyed crisp, brittle snaps that lived up to their name, others favored a softer texture, thick, moist, and filled with molasses, creating a cookie that was almost cake-like. These soft ginger snaps became especially popular during the late 19th and early 20th centuries, when molasses was inexpensive and plentiful. For many working-class families, molasses wasn't just a sweetener, it was a pantry essential. It added depth, color, and a rich flavor that balanced beautifully with ginger, cinnamon, and cloves. Combined with flour and eggs, it created a treat that felt luxurious even when made with humble ingredients. During the Great Depression and wartime rationing, ginger snaps, particularly the soft kind, were a comfort food. They required fewer expensive ingredients than frosted cakes or fruit pies, yet they carried the same ability to gather families around the table. A plate of these cookies and a warm cup of tea or coffee could turn an ordinary evening into something memorable. But what truly made the soft ginger snap special was its emotional connection. For children, it was often the first spicy cookie they tasted, sparking a lifelong love for baking. For parents, it was a way to carry on traditions, passing down recipes scribbled on old note cards or tucked into family cookbooks. Applesauce cookies. There's something beautifully resourceful about applesauce cookies, a recipe born not out of luxury, but necessity. When the pantry was bare and ingredients like butter, eggs, or sugar were rationed, homemakers found creative ways to stretch what they had. Applesauce, humble, affordable, and often homemade, became the secret ingredient that turned scarcity into sweetness. The story of these cookies ties directly to the early 20th century, especially the Great Depression and the years of wartime rationing. Families needed desserts that could be made with fewer costly ingredients, and applesauce stepped in as the perfect substitute. It added natural moisture, sweetness, and even acted as a partial replacement for fat or eggs. In fact, long before modern healthy baking trends, American homemakers were already using applesauce to make treats lighter and more economical. Imagine a 1930s kitchen, a pot of apples simmering on the stove, filling the air with a gentle sweetness. Once cooled, that applesauce wasn't just served as a side dish, it was mixed with flour, sugar, cinnamon, and cloves to create tender cookies that carried the comfort of a warm hug. Even when times were tough, these cookies offered a little joy at the end of a hard day's work. Beyond thriftiness, applesauce cookies carried emotional weight. They reminded families of harvest season, when apple picking was a communal event. Children would help peel and stir, while parents preserved jars of sauce to last through winter. Baking these cookies wasn't just about filling stomachs, it was about holding on to the rhythms of tradition and the feeling of abundance, even in lean years. Soft, fragrant, and often studded with raisins or nuts when available, applesauce cookies became a beloved household staple. They weren't fancy, but they were dependable, cookies that belonged equally on a Sunday supper table or in a child's lunch pail. Not all beloved American cookies required an oven. Some, like coconut date balls, were born from ingenuity, the kind of recipe that offered sweetness without wasting precious fuel, ingredients, or time. These no-bake treats became especially popular in the mid-20th century, but their roots stretch back to earlier decades when homemakers had to get creative with what was on hand. At the heart of this cookie is the date, a fruit that carried exotic appeal yet was practical and shelf-stable. Dates became a common pantry item in American kitchens during the early 1900s, especially around the holidays. They were often sold in small bricks or boxes, ready to be chopped and stirred into recipes. Their natural sweetness made them the perfect ingredient when sugar was scarce or rationed. Combined with a touch of butter, crispy cereal crumbs, or oats, dates transformed into a sticky mixture that could be rolled into bite-sized balls. But what gave coconut date balls their charm was the final touch, a roll through shredded coconut. That snowy coating made them look festive, like tiny confections dressed for a celebration. On Christmas trays, they stood out as a special treat, different from the usual baked cookies. For many children in the 1940s and 1950s, sneaking one of these chewy, coconut-dusted sweets felt like stealing a piece of holiday magic. Practicality was another reason for their popularity. No oven? No problem. Limited ingredients? A small batch of dates could go a long way. Families who couldn't afford extravagant desserts could still prepare a tray of coconut date balls and feel like they were serving something special to guests. They were proof that a little creativity could turn simplicity into delight.